Cool, let's start. Uh, so I'll be talking about how you can make your design systems better using design tokens. Can all of you on Zoom hear me? Maybe give like a thumbs up. Okay. So I'll try to make this session a little interactive so people on Zoom can type in stuff on the chat or even come out on audio, and people here can just shout out. Oh, I'm a designer. All of you know that, with a couple of years of experience in social media, fintech, education, and healthcare. Now, to start with, just to give you a small basics of what a design system is, I guess most of you have heard this term, and a lot of you would have created design systems for your projects earlier. Now, a design system is a single source of truth, and what that means is if you want to know what is the final truth, you go and check your design system. What is in the design system is final. Reduces design redundancy, which means that you don't have to keep creating new components with different spacings. You can keep reusing stuff again and again. And it accelerates the development process, makes design and the whole development process a little bit more faster. And yeah, it makes repetitive elements easily reusable. So instead of you having to always draw a particular rectangle in order to create a button, you already have a button creator in your design system. And Figma, you call them components, which you can keep reusing. Now, what I'm going to talk about is design tokens, and it kind of deals with the more atomic level of design system. Smaller things like colors, typography, shadows, border radiuses, and how it can sort of streamline that process and make decisions a little bit more easier. And today I'm primarily going to be looking at colors because colors is one of the most extensive set of the most extensive set that that is being maintained in any organization. So we look at colors primarily. So taking an example, if you are the only designer in an organization, you kind of know what color to use where and how to go about it because it's all in your head and you're the only designer. Now, if there are two designers, it kind of becomes a little confusing, but then it's only two designers. Designer one can ask designer two how to go about it and what color to use. But as your team grows, different people, different designers have a different idea of what the ideal blue color should be like. And you can't always depend on one person's memory or one person's thoughts. So slowly you'll have these tiny bit of errors cropping in where different people have a different idea of what the blue color should be for their brand. So designer one has one color, designer two has another color, designer three, and so forth. Oh, slides are not changing. Just give me a second. Wait, are they changing now? Okay, I was talking about this. So designer one is cool, designer two is fine. But when you have more than two designers, it kind of gets confusing and different designers have different idea of what a blue color should be like. And this slowly leads to inconsistent design. Just give me a second. Is it changing over here? Oh, I think this is a Figma slide bug. Just give me a second. Okay. So slowly you start having these different set of inconsistent colors, different shades of blue for buttons, links, text, cropping up into the design and into the final developed version. Now, to solve this is where design tokens play a major role. Many of us have kind of seen this word design tokens being thrown around at Figma config. Every design system talk you went into, they just tell, they did something with design tokens. So we'll sort of unpack what design tokens are. So in short, design tokens store repetitive design decisions in a platform agnostic way. Now to dumb this down or to make it easier to understand, it just means just by looking at the name of a color or the way it is named, you understand where to use it, a particular design decision. And platform agnostic just means that it doesn't matter if you're designing for iOS, Android, AR, VR, voice, it'll all be the same. Who created design tokens? So design token is a concept that was created by Salesforce and by a particular product designer called Gina Ann. Yeah, in short, it's a way to structure and name your colors, typography, shadows, borders, radius, and a lot more. So there are different ways that designers maintain their colors in their design system today. Now I'll go through each of them one by one and sort of discuss their pros and cons. Now, looking at this color, hashtag 2F80ED, which is a hex code. What color do you think this is? Anyone in the chat know which color this is? I mean, don't put it into Figma. Guesses? Okay, someone said blue. So any other guesses? Sorry? What? No. Okay, so it is blue, and this is the hex code for that. But so this is one way that designers maintain color. They just pick a hex code or they use their color picker tool and copy paste the colors. But the con of this is that the actual color itself is not recognizable just by looking at the code. We don't know what the color is. We are not computer. It doesn't say anything about where to use this color. Like looking at this, I have no idea where would I use it. And the problem is, as you copy paste these hex codes, a small mistake in the code, let's say instead of 8, you put a 9, it leads to a totally different color. And when you have a huge team, this is something that can keep happening regularly, and you soon end up having like 50 shades of blue. Now, this is a global token. It says blue.default. So I'm assuming you guys know what the color is. It's blue. But what do you think, or where do you think this should be used? Anything? It's not otherwise specified. Yeah, so it's not specified. So you know there is blue, but you don't know where to use it, how to use it, or whether are there any restrictions to using it. So the pro here is that compared to just having the hex code, you know what this color is just by looking at it, and that gives you some kind of information. That is one level of decision that is apparent to you. But it still doesn't tell where to use it. So different designers can have different opinions on where to use this blue.default. Maybe they use it for text, maybe they use it as a background, maybe it is a brand color, who knows? So now we go one more layer deeper. Now this is where alias tokens comes in. And in this case, if I ask you where to use this particular token, where do you think this should be used? For links. Yeah, for links. Yeah. So it kind of becomes really obvious. Text.link means that it needs to be used for links. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter if you don't know what color it exactly is, as long as you know where to use it, everything kind of works fine. So pro of this is that it conveys the purpose of this particular token or color clearly to everyone who reads it. And it sort of empowers developers too, because when a developer is using this token that is attached to a color, they know where exactly to use it. Actually, it'll be more clear in the next slide. So all of this combined together makes a design token. So you have an alias token that is attached to a global token, and the global token is attached to a hex code, which is a color. So in this case, text.link is basically using a color with the hex code 2F80ED. But like I mentioned before, just by looking at the alias token, you know where to use it exactly. And it's not just the designers that knows it. It would also be the developers that make use of these tokens to create your design. So it could even be the PM. It could even be a new designer. So a new designer walks in and they see that they have a doubt where, what color should they use for a link. And when they go through a list of colors, they see text.link, they know exactly where to use this color. And as a product designer, you would, in larger companies like Google or Facebook, you would end up using alias tokens more. So the design system would have these alias tokens where you can go in and pick and select for your various components. And it's mostly the design system or the product designer who's in charge of the design system who would be handling the global tokens and making changes to the hex codes, etc. And let's say as a designer, if you can't find a token for a particular component, then maybe you go and talk to the design systems designer that, okay, I need a new token. Can we create one? I think you would have seen there's a specific way I used to create my alias tokens. It was like text dot something. Now this particular format is being used because it's something that developers use. This is how they separate out various variables on their side, and we're just kind of copying that. But then the format that I've used, this is something that worked for my previous startup, is the first thing that I put into the token is the colors. It's basically a category. So it could be colors, typography, shadows. That's the first text. And the second one is the usage. Where do you use this? Are you using it for text? Are you using it for a background? Are you using it for a border, etc.? Then the third set is what component are you using it for? So are you using it for a button? Are you using it for a segmented control? Are you using it for a switch? Or are you using it for an overlay? And the last one I've used is the variant. So it's like default, active state, inactive state, etc. So just by reading this, you kind of get a good understanding of, where to use what. So in this case, I know this is the color that I need to use for the text inside a segmented control when it's in its default state. So just by reading this, you know where to use this particular color token. And this color token might be attached to a blue or a red, which is in the back end. And this is not like a strict rule. You can tweak this order in any way that you want. In case you have a dark and light mode in your company, maybe the last set could just read as mode. So it could be like category, usage, component, variant, and it ends with mode. So you could have color, text, segmented control, default dot dark, which means it will be used for dark mode. Okay, before I move into a more contextual, realistic example, I can show you what this looks like in the real world, some of my work from the past. Okay, I think, just give me a second. Stop share this. Yeah, can you guys see my screen? Okay. So this was created for my previous startup where I defined certain global tokens, which are like this. You would have been seeing it on various design systems. We'll just say neutral, 5, 10, 20, and each of them is attached to a color. And then I have like purple, dark, default, light, lighter, and various other colors. And this is like a small set. And then I take this set and I create alias tokens out of it. So I have a set for text, I have a set for icons, I have a set for background, border. And if you see how this named is, you have color text primary. So just by reading this, this color should be used for only primary text. And that's being attached to color neutral 20, which is this particular color over here. That is 2F363F. And similarly, I've defined that for different text. So you have secondary, tertiary, brand, white, color that you need to use for link, color that you need to use for a pro mode, if something is selected, if a text in a button is primary and if it's active, this is what you need to use. If a text in a button is primary and disabled, this is what you need to use. So it looked like a huge extensive set, but once you define it, you don't really need to change it ever. It's only when you need to actually change a color, you need to come back and change it. But in general, it just makes it easy for anyone to understand where to use a particular color. And as a side effect, it also reduces errors because now let's say you create a text and you give it let's say you create a primary button, and then when you inspect it, you see that it's using color text primary. So now we know that it's wrong because it needs to use color text button primary active. So it's easy to find out errors. Similarly, you have for backgrounds, color background button primary active. It basically means this is the color that needs to be used for the background for a primary button who's in its active state. Yeah. And one of the thumb rules to make a token is you don't need to create a token for every single color that you come up with. It's only when it's being used extensively across the app or the platform. So let's say as a rule of thumb, if you're using a color in more than 3 places, maybe create a token. But if you are creating a marketing banner and you needed one very specific color for it, you don't need a token because you're not going to be reusing it anymore, except for the marketing thing. And Figma has a pretty good tool that they introduced last year to help with creating these tokens in a more seamless way. And that's when they introduced the variables. I'm not sure how many of you have explored variables, but this is how it looks like. There's something I created for a bank where these are my global tokens. I have my gray shade. So I have gray 1, 2, 3, and that's attached to these hex codes. And then I have my brand colors, blue, dark, etc., and their corresponding hex codes. And then I have my alias tokens defined for labels, background, border, and chart. So I have my label that is color primary. So this is how you read it, right? You have color dot label dot primary. That is color gray 1. Then you have color dot background. If I go into background, yeah, color dot background dot primary is this. So this is what a designer would see, but when you export these tokens, what you would see is in this format, colors.text.segment control.default. So this is what it looks like on Figma when you create your tokens. Now, yeah. So to give you like a fun example, let's say you visit a zoo and the zoo announces that a particular animal called number 3678 has escaped. Now, how do you know if you need to panic or not? So it's kind of going to be confusing because you're not sure if number 3678 is like a hamster or a guinea pig or a snake. So it's kind of confusing. Yeah, 3678 seems harmless. But what if they said, okay, something called Goldie has escaped? Now, maybe, you might think, Goldie has to do with something golden. It might be a giraffe, not so harmless. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a capybara, yeah. Slightly harmless. Yeah, it might kill you with their cuteness. So yeah, so you're still confused, okay, I know it's something golden, but do I need to be worried about it? But then now they're like, oh, it's a lion, it's also a man-eater. So now you kind of, panic and you exactly know what escaped. It's a lion, and there's a little bit of extra decision or a little bit of extra information saying that it's also a man-eater. It's not it's not one of those friendly lions that come and, something that you can pet. And now you know that you need to panic and you need to escape as soon as possible. So yeah, so numbers 3678 is the hex code. Again, it's a number. It makes no sense to humans. Goldie is more like a global token. It gives you some information that it's like golden in color. And finally, lion hashtag man eater is the alias token, and all of them together makes a you can say a design token in the real world. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think the main takeaway for this, or the main thing that I want you guys to take away, is that design token is just an intuitive way of naming your things like colors and text. It just makes it easier for anyone to understand. Just by reading the token, they know where to use it. It also reduces the amount of decisions designers have to make. They can now not worry about where to use what color, or what spacing to use, or what text to use, and rather focus on the more important things like solving a problem or solving a challenge. And it has a lot more advantages than just this. It makes the whole design developer handoff process easier, reduces error, etc. But that's a talk for another day. I think, yeah, that's it. Anyone got any questions in chat or in live?
How often do you create design tokens on your own? When you were working, how often did you create them?
Okay, the question is, how often did you create design tokens? Not very often. Like the process of creating design tokens for your organization is the most time-taking process, because you need to define that format and you need to sort of think of the future too. What if you had a dark mode, or what if you had a light mode? Are you sort of considering that? But once you have the design tokens decided, you don't need to keep updating it always. But even if you decide to update it, it's easier than, let's say, suddenly deciding one day that you need new set of colors. But yeah, there might be instances where you create a new component or you create a new product and you need new set of colors for that. Then you might have to go back and see if you can use the existing design tokens. But if you can't, you create new ones.
At some places you use a dollar sign before the token.
Okay, here the question is, some place you use dollar sign. Okay, that is in the Figma file. That's again how it is on the developer side. That's how they call these variables. They use the dollar sign and then call them. And I'm just using that same convention over here. Even if you don't put dollar sign in design, it doesn't matter. The developers would still know to put it. But the idea is, make it as close as possible to what a developer would see, so that, again, the common language bit comes out. Anything else?
Vishnu, what's segmented control again?
Oh, it's one of those switches. So it comes in different names. What can I show you? You know how you switch between tabs and all that? Or in iOS, you have that thing where you switch on the top or at the bottom. So that's also called a segmented control, but it's also called a switcher.
Thank you.
So essentially, there are like buttons, there are segmented controls, they all come in the same component family. Yeah, I think I should have made that clear. So like, yeah, it's a toggle. It's like, let's say you have to toggle between 4 elements. What that looks like, you switch between each. It's kind of like a tab, but with buttons surrounding it. Yeah, it's a component. So if you see here, like how I have for button primary active, I would have, background segmented control. So it's all a component, different kinds of component, like buttons, switches, segment control, filters. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, also I forgot. I've written a very extensive article about this. You guys can take a look at it. I'll put the link into Slack.
Can we watch your resume trailer or your whatever it was trailer? Your portfolio trailer?
Can, but I guess it can be done here. Okay, cool. I guess then that's it. Thanks for joining in. I shall stop sharing and okay, bye guys on Zoom.